since I don't have a nice graphics that somebody already plotted out. It's to compare Air Force strength of 4 countries. Okay, we picked this 4 because it's our topic today of interest. United States, Russia, China, and Japan. Now, as I mentioned, the reason Japan is put in as to comparison is because Japan seems to be now is in this Asia-Pacific region as a central player of U.S. foreign policy. And some indications, particularly New York Times, seem to be keep on fanning the fire, says that Japanese is being threatened, therefore giving up their peaceful purpose in life and walk into a militarism. What kind of logic is that? I really don't necessarily agree with that. And let's look at these numbers first, okay? Now, for Air Force, the United States has 15,293 aircrafts. Don't quote me exact, okay? I get this from searching internet and this and that. I mean, I try to, make some logical selection so that it's consistent. 15,293. And Russia has 9,274. Second, okay? And fairly, low level of second in a sense, almost, it's certainly, it's less than 2/3 of the United States. And then China has 2,743 aircrafts. But Japan, as a much smaller country than these 3, has 1,252 aircrafts. Okay? Now, this is just a number. But if you, of course, look at the so-called advancement, if you look at a picture of all these planes, they're planes of planes. Some planes are far more advanced. And I'm sure U.S. says a lot more, far more advanced airplanes than China, perhaps even Russia. Surprisingly, Japan also has quite advanced aircrafts here. And 1,252 is not a small number. Okay. Which is, nearly half of it China has. The second category in aircraft that I found numbers is helicopters. This is interesting. Helicopter, United States has helicopter, let me be careful because this number, 6,665 helicopters. Okay, I'm assuming that these are helicopters military, not ordinary transportation helicopters, right? There's 6,000 in the United States, and Russia has 1,426. And China, really to my surprise, only has 96. I don't know what the helicopters can be used for in military sense. I'm sure some can be for transportation, sending troops, even weapons. I've seen helicopters can lift up an entire tank, right? So forth. But anyway, China's only 96. Guess what? Japan has 258, nearly 3 times as many as China has. Well, I don't know. Why would they need that many helicopters for that 4 islands of Japan? Okay? Anyway, that's just the Air Force. All right. Let's go to another picture, just representing Navy. Okay? Again, Navy has all kinds of ships. All right. In Navy, the most powerful one is aircraft carriers, as you know. In this category, United States has 10. Russia has 1. And China recently, very, very recently, has 1 that is bought from Russia a used one that refurbished as a carrier. Okay? Japan has 0, because I don't think Japan is allowed to have it as a peaceful country that not supposed to have offensive forces. Why do you need a carrier, aircraft carrier? That's mostly for attack. Now, second category is called frigates. United States has 24, Russia has 5, China has 47, and Japan has 36. This, again, I'm not military expert, do not understand what various purposes these frigates are used for. There must be a reason for Russia not to have that many. Well, one, of course, they are much more as a land country than sea country. That's probably one. But only 5, it's kind of surprising. But China has 47, and Japan has 36. Again, for a small country, has 36. More than United States, 24. So that's another question someday. I'm going to drill it down and just to understand why these numbers are that way and why people have different weapons. Next is destroyers. Okay, destroyers. United States has 61, Russia 18, China 25, Japan 44, the highest. These numbers, you would never imagine that actually unless you found this out. I mean, if I'm wrong, I'd be happy actually some of the numbers are wrong, because I don't want to see people have so much destroyers as necessarily. Again, in the Pacific Ocean. All right, next category is submarine. Okay, submarine, the United States, United States has submarine, let's see, United States 71, the highest number, I guess. Okay, 71. Russia has 58. Not that much less. Okay, apparently submarine probably is now a much more modern or more important Navy, weapon, because submarine is hard to detect, and yet with nuclear weapon, they can launch missiles from submarine, and so therefore can be a much bigger threat. So U.S. 71, Russia 58, China 63. I first thought Japan probably would have none. Okay, turns out Japan has 16 submarines. Okay, so this is a category, again, shows the strength of each country with this military power. And then the next category is this so-called coastal ships. I don't know what that means, actually. Probably a little less military, but more logistically, or for defense of coast and so on. U.S. has 12, Russia has 60, China don't even know whether they have any. Japan has 6. Okay, and then there's this mine warforce. I guess it's something to do with mining. I don't know. Again, U.S. 14, Russia 34, China 52, Japan 29. Okay, now just based on these numbers I just sort of rattle off, you can see these 4 countries are pretty powerful with Navy forces. Okay, now this brings to me then some other discussion I like to lead into. Okay, this picture shows these water cannons between ships. If you are playing games on computer, you would think this is fun. This is really nice. Shoot water to another ship and and make people sort of sweep off their feet and drown in water, and it's fun. But it's not fun because these are actually really warlike activities. Japan, for instance, used this to attack these civilian fishing ships in the South China Sea or East China Sea. I do understand Japan likes fish, and they do have a huge fish industry, particularly a ocean fish industry that goes far, even to South Pole, North Pole, and they love to catch fish, big as much as whales, as small, whatever. But having this kind of activity against other fishing ships, I don't think it's peaceful. Okay, and particularly around properties, islands that are actually not Japan's. This is where now this dispute coming in. Why is it two tiny little island, nobody's living on it, becomes now sort of a focal point of a contention? And Japan claims those are island, nobody there, and they captured them prior to World War II. There's one argument there. Therefore, they now want to claim it's theirs. But then the other funny thing is they also have cooked up a scheme that the government actually purchased these islands from civilians. I mean, totally illogical and unreasonable stories. It turns out there's a lot of historians, Japanese, Chinese, and many other world historians, including Americans, have documents to show that these islands were part of China's, territory, and they were named by Chinese. They were on the map, and the Japanese tried to steal them during 1840s or that time period, and recognize this is part of China's. They did secretly. They don't let people even make this known, and they did try to survey and approach these islands. And they hide it until when they started the China War, Japan and China War, they won. Then they, of course, took Taiwan, Okinawa, Ryukyu, and all these islands. At that time, even at that time, these islands are so tiny, were not really under anybody's sort of a microscope. Until recently, when United States decide, of course, give the administrative power of Okinawa to Japan, and generously or maybe not so smartly, saying that drawing this line, these islands, administrative powers belong to Japan, happen to be these tiny islands now is included in there. That's, again, Japanese interpretation. Although United States, in trying to stay out of this and claiming, we are neutral as far as the ownership of these islands and so forth. But in reality, the U.S. is not doing China any favor, and not even necessarily doing ourselves any favor, because now Japan claiming this, arousing the attention. Now there's confrontation between China and Japan, and I will show you some pictures. And Japan is certainly not backing off, because the way the new elected prime minister, this is the prime minister picture, Shinzo Abe, is a right-wing party leader, very much wanted to revise the military power. As you see, Japan is already very strong militarily. Later on, you will see that other places actually talk about Japan is a nuclear weapon ready country. Interesting term. They don't show any missiles, nuclear power, so on in these tables comparison. But they show their technology is so advanced, they can turn it on anytime. They have large number of nuclear power plants. They have large piles, stockpiles of nuclear spent fuels. And their technology is such that they can turn into nuclear weapon if they wanted to. So this may be even more critical than countries like Iran trying to very hard to build nuclear, weapon with all this embargo and so forth preventing it. Now, in Japan, not everybody is right-wing. Not everybody wants to have war, just like in the United States. Like me here talking to you, I don't think everybody in our country wants to have a war. There's got to be a reason for having war, right? So there were demonstrations in Japan, and they are against the right-wing militarism all the time. But recently, this Mr. Abe Shinzo got elected. I might even, speculate that this election is tied into this revised sort of nationalism and militarism that had fanned by United States. Maybe United States, the so-called pivot back to Asia-Pacific strategy or foreign policy, has some plan. But in my opinion, this is the time we need to think about and speak out. Is that a good plan or right plan? Are we really pushing into war again? These Japanese, although the right-wing party are very ambitious in a sense, want to restore their glory as far as the strongest country in Asia. They even want to be strongest country in the world. But not everybody is that way. Even though they are ambitious, they also now realize, it's not that easy as like 100 years ago, attack China or try to occupy the world. So they dragging United States into this by making U.S. to interpret the Japan-U.S. defense treaty protects Japan, including these tiny little islands, which U.S. agree it doesn't belong to Japan. It takes a neutral position, which actually, in essence, recognize historically, legally, those islands belong to China. Now, this kind of interesting sort of situation really not understood by most people, including myself a few months ago and so forth. If I don't read newspaper and go into it sort of by purposely, seeking, you won't get much. You get these headline stories and so forth. Sometimes I wonder, particularly big media, such like the New York Times, I wonder, those articles, what's the purpose? It seemed to be similar to what communists used to do, brainwashing the mass by having one media, one government newspaper, putting out headlines on a daily basis to brainwash people. But in our country, we cannot be brainwashed. We have to use our brains to think through and watch, are we doing the right thing? Now, Shinzo Abe came to visit Obama in February with that very exact purpose. They're not stupid. If they want to be expansionists, they want to start war or conflict with others, they want to drag U.S. behind. And dangling that U.S.-Japan treaty protects us. Use that as a leverage. As any sane people, and you think about it, this kind of a game, it's leading to serious conflict rather than solving conflict. Why should U.S. be dragged into that and doing that? That's the question I'm asking. You or anybody else, we should think about it. Why? Now, when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, she actually dispatched people to Japan making speeches. It almost sounded like they were right-wing party members of Japan. Right into their alley of saying Japan need to sort of rise up. Now, if you look at it from a economics point of view, that while U.S. is spending a lot of money, military, spending, sort of in Japan because there are military bases and so forth, and we want them to sort of share some of the burden and pay for those. That's one thing. But if you are thinking that, well, let Japan build up, okay, so that in Asia or Asia Pacific, they could be our frontline soldiers. That's a different thinking. And I'm not really sure, why Clinton now, hopefully, with the new Secretary Kerry, that some of these policies issues ought to be re-examined. I am not really comfortable, nor I understand why that partnership, okay, and targeting China as enemy is valid. I mean, look at the Second World War. Japan is definitely aggressor. Attack Pearl Harbor and attack China, attack Korea, attack Philippines, attack everybody. And after the war, okay, fortunately, all right, United States, being the victor, is given a lot of leeway in helping settling the sort of aftermath. But we cannot forget history. We cannot forget all of this completely. And now, instead of looking into Asia, say, well, the two big countries is India and China, and how do we work together economically, help people to raise their standard of living so that they benefit as well as we benefit. Because raising another country's standard of living requires other countries' technology, commerce, investment, and so forth. But yet, we are making this kind of a sort of like a chess game, assuming this is the enemy, this is the weapon we need to do. We bring this in, we try to do that. One threat needs another. And I think the North Korea recent nuclear sort of experiments and threats and so on, it's a consequence of this pivot to Asia policy. When you make a threat to somebody, I serve on the school board. I sometimes have these issues with people deal with. It's like a people discover in the school there's a bullying going on. You don't partner with another bully guy to say, well, then I am safe now. We can bully others together. You have to think about what the consequences of taking a partnership, making a threat, what it leads to, right? So, in my view, the foreign policy is so critical, so important, and many times, ordinary citizens do not understand and do not sort of have the information. Therefore, we're at the mercy of things that happen. When it happened, we cannot do anything about it. Now, like Jane Fonda, all right, being a political activist and so on, and continue to do this, take action, sometimes you have to commend that it's good. But on the other hand, when it's done at a late stage or without knowing everything, then it becomes a problem. And that's the reason that she was in this controversy as a traitor versus an activist. I am American citizen. I don't pretend, see, I am a military specialist of any kind or a foreign policy expert. I basically use my intelligence and my conscience, try to understand we want to live in a world that's peaceful. And we want to be prosperous. We want to protect our children. We want to provide our children with a living environment and so forth, not with potential war. We don't want to have foreign policy that sort of agitates and leads to military confrontation and threats and so forth, right? All right. Now, let me see whether I have any other interesting picture I can show. Maybe I show you this little picture about this little, oops. Hey. Come on, this one. This is the tiny island, nobody lives there. It's called Diaoyu, okay? And because the recent Japan's sort of schemes of buying and doing and occupying and chasing fishermen, you see, the Chinese, even both Taiwan and mainland, although they have political differences, they want to make a statement. That's their property. So you see the red China flag as well as Taiwan flag there. Now, this is the games were played before, okay? Now China is sending their patrol ships to protect fishermen. Japan is trying to prevent them coming in. Now is getting complicated, okay? United States is in a position to see this and try to conduct ourselves and this foreign policy to lead things into peaceful solution, not confrontations and the threats lead to war, particularly nuclear war. That's unthinkable. Okay, so I hope that this hour, it's not a waste to you. And I constantly read and try to understand the world. Ever since I participated in this public TV, broadcast, and I have sort of a luxury to be on my own with time. I like to, understand the world. I like to think that I could contribute a little bit to help towards future and my younger generations. Sometimes people are too busy to care about, but you can't. You have to care about it. So thank you for watching, and we'll talk again when something else that happens. I'm sure a lot of things will happen very soon.